All right, so welcome everyone. I appreciate that you're all here, and this is one of many things that you could be doing. But I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce the purpose of this webinar. This is a webinar in the series preparing participants for the 2023 UN Datathon. And this webinar focused specifically on data sources and analytic platforms that will be used by the teams during the event, during the 3 days. So this is a very specific focus on trying to introduce teams to the environments where they will be doing the work, and the sort of make sure that everyone hits the ground running, has a good opportunity to gain familiarity in advance. Not every platform will allow access in advance. In fact, I don't think any will, but it's still a good time to read up on documentation, have a strategy going forward. So just to see if I can. Yeah, so that's what I just said. The goals very straightforward. We have 4 major technology platforms, environments, let's call them, that will be used. And we want to make sure that people can understand what's going on, understand the advantages of each, and make wise choices during the Datathon about which environments they invest in and how they move data between them potentially. We're going to have a time for question and answers as well. So we'd like to encourage everyone to engage to the extent you're willing and ask questions. And there's really this is the time to ask what you may think is a dumb question, because we want to make sure that there's no ambiguity or lack of clarity going into the event, so that you can really maximize your effectiveness. And we will touch on the data sources that will be available in each platform to the extent that's there. We'll try to cover that. So the 4 platforms, I'm just going to briefly walk through the speakers for today. This is sort of the agenda overview. I've tried to put it in order of the speakers. And then, so after these 4 platforms, we're going to have a Q&A, and then we'll close, and that'll be it. Hopefully get this all done in about 2 hours or less. So our first speaker today will be Amazon Web Services. We have two speakers from AWS. They're going to present their platform, their services that the participants will be leveraging during the Datathon. We're going to walk participants through the Workshop Studio portal and the instructions for a successful event. So this is AWS. We also have Esri. So Esri is going to introduce. We have 1 speaker, I believe, maybe more. They're going to introduce Esri and the tools that will be available during the Datathon, including ArcGIS Online, ArcGIS Living Atlas of the World, and ArcGIS Notebooks. Learn how to create a map, perform analysis, create interactive web apps, and create a story map to submit your project. So that's Esri. We have NetApp. NetApp will be briefly explaining the Ocean for Apache Spark environment and how it helps reduce costs. They'll be demonstrating accessing their platform using Jupyter Notebooks as well as PySpark and running a few queries. Lastly, they'll give an overview of the applications running in the Ocean for Apache Spark platform. And finally, we have perhaps a lesser-known partner, but one that provides some of the most interesting technology we've seen to date. This is Oblivious AI. They are going to give a brief overview of privacy-enhancing technologies. And this really involves looking how to work with data when you can't see it, and the motivation to use pets and their challenges, and provide an introduction to the tools that are available when you start to work with pets. Not pets like your dog or your cat, but really it's about privacy-enhancing technologies, and it's a fantastic area of research and development that we're proud to offer to the hackathon Datathon participants for this year as well. So yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to go into today, and I really wanted to give this back to the speakers of the 4 platforms that are there, and to really provide them an opportunity to go into depth. And any questions you have, there are many of us who will be around to answer and sort of facilitate things. So don't hesitate to put things in the chat, or if if you raise your hand, we'll try to find the right time to post a question. Ideally, at the end of every session. So if you raise your hand during the middle, ideally what we'll do is we'll wait until the presentation is over. We'll answer a few questions, and then we'll try to be really strict with time and make sure that there's no. We want to make sure every speaker has exactly, let's say, 20 minutes for their overall session. So I hope that's not unclear. That's it from me. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. And we're going to hand it over to friends at AWS first.
Thank you, Sean. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, nice hats, by the way. I wish I had a cool hat.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to walk you guys through what AWS is going to be providing during the Datathon next month. But before we go ahead and talk about this, we want to introduce ourselves. And I want to give the word to my colleague, Isa, first.
Thank you, Danielski. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Azul Mohammed, and I'm a solutions architect at AWS for the United Nations and the World Bank Group. So I'm based in Dallas, Texas, and I specialize in serving the public sector and collaborating with institutions and giving technical guidance and architecture designs and solutions to companies and institutions. So I help in guiding, for optimizing for performance, availability, resiliency, security, and availability. So I have a background in computer science, and I'm really excited to actually be with you guys to help you with the Datathon today. And me and Danielski here are going to be supporting the Datathon and providing the infrastructure and accounts. I'll pass it back to Danielski.
Thank you, Iso. So my name is Duniesky Otano. I'm a solutions architect as well, just with Iso Mohammed at the public sector. I'm based out of Miami, Florida, and I've been with the company for 2 years now. And Iso and I, we are the account essays for the United Nations. So we basically have similar roles. So we work with different workloads, different agencies, different types of technologies, right? I also have a background in software engineering and computer science, and I used to be an instructor at AWS. Now I joined the company 2 years ago, and recently we joined the UN about 6 months ago. Okay, that's all about us for now. I'm gonna turn my camera off for bandwidth because I'll be sharing my screen. Like Sean said, if you have any questions, go ahead and post the questions in the chat. We're gonna do our best to answer all of your questions while we're here. Let me share my screen. All right, so basically what we're gonna be talking about today, and let me know if you can see this screen that says access to your AWS provided account. So give me a thumbs up if you can do it.
Looks good.
All right, perfect. So basically what we're gonna be doing today is go over how to access the AWS platform, and also show you some of the services that are going to be featuring in the Datathon, right? So some pieces of information that you guys need for accessing the platform, and this is something that we're going to be providing you folks with the date of the Datathon. And I think we already have a question. Percy? The participant muted, Sean? Because that's
I've unmuted his mic. Yeah, he should be able to ask. Percy, yeah. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask a question?
Okay. Probably
if not, I guess participants can put their question also in the meeting chat, and then we can take it from there.
Sure. Okay, going back to this, So we're gonna have a URL that's gonna be provided the day of the Datathon. All the information that you folks need is gonna be provided. You would need your email and a one-time passcode that once you enter your email, you're going to provide. And also an access code that each event has. This one is a temporary one that I created, but you will have a different one that you're gonna be using that day, right? So once you click on this link, it's gonna take you to this site here, this page, right? And there are multiple ways that you can sign in. You can sign in using with Amazon, or if you're an Amazon employee, this is the one that we use. But the one that we recommend is this one, the first one, which is the one that is highlighted by default. So I'm gonna click on it because I wanna walk you through this. I'm gonna click on it, and then I'm gonna provide my work email. So I click on send that one-time passcode. I'm gonna wait for that to arrive in my mailbox. And once I have that one-time passcode, I'm gonna enter it here. It's a 9-digit passcode. And then I can continue and provide the access code that that we're gonna be providing. So this is gonna be our one-time password. Right here, enter it. This is a one-time thing, okay? So I sign in, right? The sign in successful, and then I get to this part here. Now, I click on get started, and this is when I have to enter the event access code, right? It's like another piece of information that you have to enter. So I'm gonna copy this, and then I will go ahead and paste it here, right? And then click next. Send the missing contains, we see space here. Oh, I was putting a space in the beginning. Okay, so once you have this, you're gonna have the name of the event. You're gonna have the time when it started. It started today, because this is the test one, and this at the time that is gonna last. For our case, in our event, the actual event is gonna be 72 hours. So it's gonna be good for you guys because you start on the 3rd, and then it's gonna end on the 6th. So you have 72 hours. That's fine, perfect, right? And then you have some terms and conditions here that you need to accept. So you can read it through. We're not gonna read it today, but you can take your time and read it once you have access to this event. And then you agree that with the terms and conditions, and then you join the event, right? Now, this is the landing page here. It's gonna tell you when the event is going to expire. This one is going to expire in 11 hours and 23 minutes because I originally selected 12 hours, but if it is 72, it's gonna say probably 71 hours and 23 minutes, most likely, right? Now, all probably tells you 2 days and 21, probably 23 hours and 59 minutes, depending, right? So this is the part, the landing page that has the same information, some of the services. And then you have here in this side, you have some of the information that you need to know, like what to expect, right? The judging, and this was taken from the UN website. So you can read this here or in the UN side, but this is some of the things that you will be expecting in your event, right? You have also the awards, how the awards are going to be granted, and all that. And this is the part where you set up the environment, and basically is what we just did, right? Entering your email, your one-time passcode, and the access code. Why we put it here? Because maybe you have to log out for some reason, and then you have to log back in. So you can come back to the website. We're going to be providing this in the website as well, and then you can go through that, and also here as well once you are logged in. Now there's some instructions as well. So this is like how to build a domain. We're still working on it. This is still in progress, right? But how to create a domain in SageMaker, just in case you are using SageMaker. Also here we have some instructions on how to access the RODA, which is the registry of data on AWS. There's some information here as well, right? And how to work with raw data sets. There's some instructions here, what to do, where to find the data, what commands to run, right? And also how to upload the data in an S3 bucket, just in case you want to work with that, right? So once you have the data in your computer, right, locally, you can push it to S3, and here are the instructions for that. We also have some of the services that we're going to be using for this event, right? You can read upon them, so it will take you exactly to the login page. So here I have the service. There you go, right? Now, very important information here, AWS account access. So you have two links here. Let me show you first this one. This one is the AWS CLI credentials. So these are temporary credentials that you can use if you're using the command line interface. Just in case you want to push things to the cloud from your terminal or PowerShell, right? You have, this is for Linux or Mac using Bash or Fish or PowerShell. We have here with the syntax of PowerShell, and also Windows CMD if you want to use that as well. So for this, you don't have to log into the account. You can work from outside the account and push things to the cloud using credentials. So every time, like we explained on the first office hours on the 4th of this month, every time you try to access the AWS services from outside the AWS account, you will need to authenticate yourself. You will need to provide access keys, right? In this case, a session token, which expires after a certain time, to be able to interact with those services, right? So this is a section where you work with the credentials. Now, if you want to access the account itself, you have another link here. And by the way, this is in the US East 1, but we're going to be providing events depending on the region where the participants are coming from, right? If it is not that region, if it is not in that region, it's going to be closed, right? But we're going to be taking that into consideration when deploying this platform. Now you click here and it will take you to the landing page of the AWS account. So we talked about this on our first office hours, but this is the page where you land when you log in. You have multiple things that you should consider here in this website, right? You have the region where this has been deployed, right? Which is US East 1. This is North Virginia. You have other 31 regions here listed here. There are 32 regions in AWS at the moment. And this is the participant role, I would say the user ID of this particular account, and this is the account number. So they're going to be around 323 accounts or teams in the Datathon. Each one will have a different number. So this is a unique number for each account, right? And here we have the search bar where we find the services that we're going to be working with. We have 3 different ways. We have the recently visited section. This is where we have the services that we have been working with. This is a cached section. In this case, I show here, probably when you open your account for the first time, you would not see anything because you haven't worked with it yet, but I've been working with this. And this is very related to my, closely related to my cookies in my computer. That's why even when I open a new account or a new access, I still have this because it's in my browser, right? There's another way here by clicking on these services tab here where you can find categories and analytics. This is the one that we are concerned about. And these are the services that we're going to be, that you can use if you so desire, right? Or you can type the name of the service here. Let's say that we're working with Amazon S3, which is an object storage. And it is going to, well, actually, let me put here Esri only. and it gives me S3, and this is where I access my bucket. Right now, this is a new account, and we're working with a Datathon or hackathon. We're not providing exactly any resources because we don't know what you guys are going to be using, but we're going to provide all the permissions and everything that you need to be able to use the resources that you create in your AWS account. But this account that I created has a sample server running. So when we launched it, it has a server. This is an EC2 instance running here, right? It's just to prove, to test it out, right? But this is a resource running. We don't want this because we don't know what's going to be using, but we're going to give you all the permissions for you guys to use it, right? So that's the console, what we call the management console, the AWS management console here. Multiple things. If you want to run any commands inside your AWS account, which doesn't require any access keys, you can click here in Cloud Shell, right? Or down here, two different ways to open this. This is going to create a terminal for you. So I click here, and this creates a terminal for you. And when you have that terminal, then you can go ahead and, for example, you want to see, let me see, you want to run a command and say, give me all the buckets, the S3 buckets that you have in this account, okay? There's nothing, there's no bucket, but if you create a bucket, right, in S3, right, if you create a bucket in S3, right, then you can go ahead and list that. For example, let me see, AWS, this Datathon, and it has to be unique core 2023, right? And this is going to be USS 1. There's instructions on how to create a bucket, so don't bear with me now. So there's a bucket here that I just created to store data, and that's going to be one of the most used services in the Datathon because you're working with data, right? Now, if I rerun that command, I will be able to see that bucket that I just created, right? So another resource that you can use when working with the AWS account is called the AWS Cloud Shell. It's a web-based in a browser shell, right? But you're already authenticated, so you don't have to worry about providing any access keys or anything, right? So I talked about the platform, how to access the services, reload here. Okay, going back to here, so we have some of the services that you guys can use, and if you want to know more about them, we talked about the services in the previous, some of the services in the previous office hours, like SageMaker. We talked about Esri, EMR. We're gonna be talking about the Amazon Athena, Glue, and QuickSight on the next office hours next Wednesday, right? And then we're going to be providing information for AWS IAM and Amazon Redshift as a warehousing solution in AWS, right? So I think that's all what we have here. It's just walk you through the platform, some of the things that you can click on here to understand how to create something, how to work with the, and this is one of the options that you're going to have to pull data from the Rota, and all some instructions that you can follow here to be able to download that data and put it in an S3 bucket so that you can utilize it later when transforming your data. So that's all on AWS. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask in the chat or later in the Q&A session after presentations. We'll do our best to answer all your questions. Back to you, John. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's perfect timing with 18 minutes. Not that I'm actually timing this, but I am. So I think this is wonderful. There were some questions, and I like this idea of putting them in the chat. I did want to point out to one person, the office hours were recorded, and I put in the Q&A session the link to our timeline on our website. And if you have an interest in in-depth sort of walkthroughs, in particular relating to setting up, SageMaker, getting the Python kernel running, all that stuff. That was actually very important. I think that was our first office hour session that we did, over an hour of that. So please have a look. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us over email and this sort of thing. So we're happy to go into depth. So we have 1 minute left for questions in this session before I have to aggressively move on. Any important questions we want to ask now before I move on? And you still have time at the end. I think we're probably good for now. I don't see any hands. So without any delay, so I think next on our list, I have to double check, was, I believe, Esri. So is Kate S here?
Yes.
Excellent. Very cool. Ooh, nice background. That's nice.
Thank you.
Okay.
All
So
right.
I'll let you go. All yours.
Thank you. So, hello everyone. My name is Kate Hess. I am a solution engineer at Esri. So, if you haven't heard of Esri before, we are a mapping software company. So, we provide geographic information systems, or GIS software. And today I'm going to go through everything that you'll have access to during the Datathon. I will then answer questions from the chat, and I want to highlight also that we're going to have an office hours next week on Tuesday, where we'll do a really deep dive, go into actually demonstrating some analysis workflows using data that you'll have available during the Datathon. So that will be the big deep dive session today. I'm just going to do more of an overview and how to access. And I've made this documentation page public so that you can also start reading some of the documentation about what's available during the Datathon. And this is just the things that I'm going to cover today. And this will be in the wiki documentation section, but I just pulled it out so that it's available in case you want to do any reading before the Datathon starts. So once you log in, which you'll do using single sign-on, so using the same account that you're using for everything else in the Datathon, you'll be able to access this, which is the ArcGIS Online homepage. So from here, you can access your content. So this is where you're able to upload any new content. So you can see here the different types of data you're able to upload. So you can pull in data from a URL, any publicly hosted data on the web. You can create a new feature layer, so creating geographic data from scratch, or you can upload data from your device. So that could be a CSV file or any spatially enabled data. So that will all be stored in your contents. Then one of the main areas for analysis in ArcGIS Online is going to be the map viewer. So you saw I clicked the tab titled Map at the top of the page. And here I'm going to be prompted first to start adding data, so I have something to do analysis on. The options for adding data, I can browse layers that I've already uploaded to ArcGIS Online. I could add a new layer from a file or link out to another layer using a URL. Now, if I go to browse layers, the first option is my existing content that I've uploaded. I also have the option to bring in data from the Living Atlas. So this is a collection of authoritative data that Esri curates, and all of the data in Living Atlas is going to be available for you to use in your projects during the Datathon. So this is one way you can use it. You can search. I could search fire and see VIIRS, thermal hotspots and fire activity, California fire perimeters with historic data over time. So there is a ton of data in here. Searching from the map viewer is one way to access it. If you want a more comprehensive view, you can also go to the ArcGIS Living Atlas of the world. If it's linked in the documentation, if you just Google it, you should also be able to get here. And selecting that Browse tab. And now I can, again, scroll through the over 10,000 data sets that are available through the Living Atlas. I can search, or I can make use of some of the filtering here. So If I filter on imagery, I can see we have a couple different imagery sources here. We have Sentinel, NAPE imagery, there's Landsat here. There's also tools to work with imagery data. So we have some pre-trained deep learning packages available that you could use in your work, including doing feature extraction from imagery. So we have models for pulling out building footprints, roads. The segment anything model from Meta is available to be run within ArcGIS Online. And then we also have models for land cover classification, and some of those are specified for particular sensors. So this one's for Landsat 8. We also have one designed to work with Sentinel data and one for high resolution. I will note there's not much high resolution data available for free in the Living Atlas. So if that's something you're wanting to work with, you would have to upload that separately into your organization. So those are a few examples of the imagery offerings that are available. There's also boundaries data. So this is everything from world country boundaries to park boundaries, wildfire boundaries. All of this you can then bring into a map and start editing. So if I were to click on World Protected Areas, it's going to give me more information about that data set. I can see who published it. So this is coming from the UN Environment World Conservation Monitoring Center. You can see the terms of use for these different data products. And then I have the option to open it in the map viewer. So this is going to bring me back to that same map interface that I was showing at the beginning, but now you can see it's been populated with this data. So there's multiple ways to bring data into a map to start working with it. And now that this is here, I can explore it further. I can select any of these points, read more information about a specific polygon. I can also view a tabular version of this data. So here I can see that there are 12,210 polygons of different protected areas around the world. I can read that information, and I can also use this to select an area and zoom to it on the map. So once I've explored the data a little bit, I know what I want to work with. I can then go over to the Analysis tab and start doing spatial analysis on my data sets. So we have quite a few tools available within the online map viewer to work with your data. You can summarize data if you wanted to see how many protected areas fall within one country boundary. You can analyze patterns, so you could find hotspots or outliers. You can also do proximity analysis. So if I wanted to see how many people live within 10 miles or 2 kilometers of a protected area, I could generate travel areas and see how many people live within 10 minutes walk of a protected area. So these are just a few ideas of types of analysis that you can do in the map viewer using geographic data that you've either pulled in from Living Atlas or any of your own data that you've uploaded into the system. And we'll do a deeper dive and show actually step-by-step going through an analysis workflow in that presentation in the office hours on Tuesday. Now, if you're more comfortable working in a scripting environment, and so you don't want to learn this new map viewer and do your analysis looking at the map, we also have, if I go back to the home page, a notebooks environment available for ArcGIS Online. So if I'm back at that home page and I go up to the Notebooks tab, from here I can create a new notebook, and this is going to look like a standard Jupyter notebook. You can use anything you could use in a Jupyter notebook, you can use here. We also have our own ArcGIS API for Python. So this is going to allow you to use all of those geospatial tools, the ones that you saw in the map viewer, as well as there's a whole additional set of other tools that you're able to use through the API running in a notebooks environment. And to start getting some inspiration, I always start looking at these Esri sample notebooks. So you probably won't need these administration ones, but they're interesting data science notebook examples in here, like aggregation analysis. So looking at which college district has the fewest low-income families. There's one on crime analysis. There's an interesting one on deep learning, predicting El Nino Southern Oscillation. So all of these you can just dive into, see some examples of the kind of work that you can do in notebooks. There's also this API for Python samples page, which I've linked in the documentation. Gives even more examples. So you can see on the left, everything under GIS analysts and data scientists. There are a ton of different examples here on lots of topics that are relevant to the Datathon. So one example I've selected here, find hospitals closest to an incident. So you can see it's just a normal Jupyter Notebook looking environment. You can create layers. So you can generate maps within the notebook environment, do your analysis, generate output maps, and also work with tabular data. You can create charts, anything else you'd be able to do in a normal notebook environment. So that's available to you through ArcGIS Online. So now I've shown a place to get data from the Living Atlas, how you can create maps using the map viewer, and do analysis either in the map environment or the notebook environment. Another capability you're going to have access to through ArcGIS Online is the ability to share out the outputs of your analysis using different interactive web applications. So I'll go back to my world database map. If I save this, I'll then have the option to create an app from this web map. So we have 4 options here. Instant apps. These are going to be a quick way to create an interactive application that you can share for others to explore your map. There are some suggestions here to guide you through which web app might be a good choice. So for example, allow viewers to interact with your data. If you want them to be able to filter the features, the interactive legend option lets you select something in the legend, and it's going to highlight just the things that are in that category on the map. A media map, you can do a swipe. So if you want to show change over time or show some analysis that you've done on top of the base data, you can compare those side by side. Or there's a time slider option if you're showing data that has a time component. So those are just a few of the instant apps that are available. You can also create a dashboard. So dashboards, even if you haven't heard of Esri before or realized that you're familiar with it, you've probably seen the very viral coronavirus case and trends dashboard that Johns Hopkins made using our technology. So this is a great example of how you can use this to highlight a map and then pull out insights from that map in showing interactive charts, looking at change over time. You can configure these so that there's multiple insets of different maps. You can make them interactive. So when you select something on the sidebar, it's going to zoom to that area. And you can also set it to filter the other widgets around the map. So dashboards is available to you if that's a way you're going to want to present your data. And the last way that I'll show you can share your data and your analysis outputs is with story maps. So ArcGIS story maps is very intuitive to use. We have a story builder where it'll embed your map, and then you can say our Datathon project. You can make some design changes, and very quickly you can get to an output product that you can share, that you can add text to give context to the analysis you've done. So you can explain your workflows. You can embed code snippets. So it'll just be formatted as a code snippet. It'll respect all of the colors in the code. You can also embed maps, images, videos, the swipe interface like I was talking about, and you can embed content. So if you've done all of your analysis somewhere else during this project, but you still want to take advantage of story maps just to share your final project, have a nice one URL that you can send to someone to showcase your work. You can embed all of the analysis you've done elsewhere, and then just use the text features and any images or anything else you would want to use to contextualize that work, and submit your final project using a story map. And the last thing I'll show is just an example of that. So we've run some other competitions in the past and had students submit using story maps. So here's one example of a data science project that's showcased using a story map. So she's using the ability to embed videos at the top here. She covers her research motivation, so setting up why she's doing this project. Then goes into the actual workflow. So showing her work, and the submission. In this case, you have to include a link to your code. So this is a way to add context to that code and explain what you're doing. And then she also covers the actual results of the project. So embedding figures, showing the outputs of her data science analysis. So being able to have the explanation next to the output charts is a really great way to be able to present the final outputs of your work. And then something like this is just great to have for your portfolio. It's easy to submit a link when you're applying for a job or just trying to show someone a project that you've done in the past. So big fan of story maps. I think it's a great way to share your work. And the submission for the Datathon final results, there's an option to submit a story map with the outputs of your analysis. So that's the overview. Find data in the Living Atlas, do your analysis in the map viewer or in notebooks, create different interactive web apps like instant apps or dashboards to share your analysis, and then sum it all up, give the full end-to-end story of your Datathon project in a story map. All of this is available through ArcGIS Online. We'll be covering it in more detail on Tuesday in the office hours session. But right now, I'll open up the chat and see if there are questions. So we're going to keep the final projects available. So I'm not going to promise that they'll be there forever, but for at least a year or two, we'll have the story maps still posted. I can give more information about that. I'll double check so we'll have a formal answer. Oh yes, I didn't actually put the documentation. Did I put the documentation link? There you go. And there's a ton of Esri documentation on the internet. If you Google how to use story maps, how to use dashboards, any specific question about using any of these tools, we have a whole team that all they do all day is write documentation. So there are great resources out there. All right. Looks like all of the chat questions have been answered. I just saw one more. Can I use data I already have on the Esri platform? So you'll have access. I mean, there's nothing stopping you if you already have an account on some other organization. You could do your project there and just submit a public story map link if you can make everything public from that organization. If you're able to make the data sources that you have in your other organization, if you can create a group between the two organizations, you can share that content so it can stay living in your other organization, and you can make it available through the group sharing settings to your account in the Datathon organization if you want to use it, if you maybe have more access. So we've really opened up the organization for the Datathon with pretty much maximum access to all of the analysis capabilities in ArcGIS Online. So if you want to take advantage of that, you can always create a group to share things over that you might have in another ArcGIS Online environment. Is there a way to upload a dashboard to Esri that is developed locally or available in another cloud server? So uploading a dashboard, like if you're just trying to showcase something like that in a story map, you can embed things from the web, you can upload things as images. You're not going to be able to upload something totally from locally and have it be interactive within a story map. But if it has a public web link and you can just do a normal embedding from the web, that would work in a story map. If that answers that question. If you made a dashboard in another ArcGIS environment and you want to showcase that in your story map, that would work. Just the embedding would work normally on that. So that would have all the normal functionality. Hopefully that answers that question. Okay, great. All right.
Well,
I think we're good then. Thank you.
Yeah, that's perfect. 20 minutes right on the money.
Perfect.
So this is great. I have to say, it's fantastic to see the level of sophistication that we've seen so far from the cloud platforms, the tech partners. So our next technology partner for the Datathon is Mr. Andrew Mills from NetApp, and I'm not going to give a big introduction because I didn't give it to anyone else. But Andrew, perhaps if you can introduce yourself and kind of the, given what you've seen with AWS and Esri, it's where does NetApp fit into this mix? And
yeah,
you
absolutely.
can always bump it over to me if you want to put me on the spot. That's fine as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I actually wanted to also bring in, I brought my colleague with me, Ahmed. So if you want to pop on as well, he's going to be helping with the chat. So real quick, my name is Andrew Mills, and I am with NetApp. So not to get super confusing, but you're going to see 3 different company names as we go across this. NetApp is a storage monster from the 90s, and they over recent years they've been pivoting to more of the cloud operations side of things. So they have acquired a couple of companies, one of those being Spot and also Instacluster. So you're going to see NetApp and Spot and Instacluster names because there's just different things going on with the mergers and acquisitions. So NetApp offers what is called Ocean for Apache Spark. Well, actually, let me step back. I'm sorry. So I am a solutions architect with NetApp, and I'm also a Kafka expert. I've been a developer for the past 15, 16 years, and for the last 7, I've been solely focused on big data pipelines and focused primarily on Apache Kafka. But through that, I've gained quite a bit of experience with Apache Spark as well. So I do work in Spark. Ahmed, are you available to pop on the camera by chance so we can give you a quick intro?
Finally. Hey guys. Hey Sean, nice to see you again. So yeah, quick presentation about myself. As Andrew said, I'm a solutions architect. I'm a specialist for Ocean for Apache Spark within NetApp. So you guessed it, my specialty is with Spark. So I used to be a data engineer before, and yeah, I'm here to help Andrew run the presentation and to answer all of the possible questions here.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, man. Sorry for all that. Okay, so how does NetApp and our solution fit? Sean, I mean, I can give an overview of Spark, but I think, strategically, it would make the most sense for you to explain kind of how you see us fitting in between the layers of Arc and AWS, and because data is going to be distributed across those. So give us a summary of how you see it fits best.
Yeah. Okay. So the way I see the Spark environment, so there's a lot of access to big data, and actually, AWS offers Spark, but what we found that NetApp offers a very unique product that allows us to take advantage of our own infrastructure and run things in a very cost-effective way. So they have 2 products. They have Ocean. Ocean is this very efficient autoscaler for cloud-native environments. So what we can do when we combine this Ocean autoscaler with this Apache Spark environment they've created, we can actually sort of in a way create this serverless environment where we can open up to the community access to Spark at a reasonably low cost. So this is one of the, from an operational side, it has a very distinct cost advantage. And this is how the UN has decided to approach, I mean, this is how our statistical division has decided to approach this issue of running Spark. So there are other options that are out there. There's serverless, but this is, for us, the approach that's been the most cost effective and given us the most control over the product. So Spark as a technology is a way of, if you have petabytes or terabytes of data, you can actually very efficiently analyze it, and by efficiently both in terms of time and in terms of cost. So this is and it's built in where this is a partnership because it's deployed on AWS. So this is something where we have a very clear partnership between the AWS environment that we're using and the NetApp product that we're deploying there. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so I will dive in a little bit. I got a couple slides, and I'll just show you guys real quick what exactly that is and a little bit more about how it works, and then we'll get logged in and I can show you a demo. So the product at hand that Sean mentioned is Ocean for Apache Spark. And so as he mentioned, Spark is largely the engine that drives a lot of analytic workloads. And so obviously you can use Python, Scala, Java, SQL, all sorts of various languages. And you can pull in disparate data sources. So you can pull in the Arc data, you can pull in bucket data from AWS, you can pull in data from Kafka or streaming data, and then you can analyze that using Spark in a variety of ways. You can do real-time pipelines, you can do large historical analytics for like he said, terabytes or petabytes of data, and so that is what Spark is. And so the complication behind Spark is it's hard to run an infrastructure in an efficient and effective way. And so that's what we've worked on really hard. And so the way that we help make Spark more developer friendly is we've Dockerized it, and it's native Docker, and it runs in Kubernetes. Okay, so we maintain a fleet of Docker images that have various dependencies preloaded on them. So that way, depending on what you need to do, whether you're pulling from S3 or pushing or pulling to Snowflake, any of these languages or these platforms, we will preload all those dependencies for you, and then you can just pull the image down and utilize those dependencies. We also have Hootie and some other ones that aren't listed here, and you can use those to do your workloads. We do integrate with your tools. This highlights a few of them. So this is our Ocean logo here. It works with Airflow for orchestration, and then obviously Jupyter, and then Kubernetes and Docker there. There's lots of other obviously things you can integrate with, I mentioned before, but this is just kind of the tight ecosystem there. And we have on top of the Spark jobs, we have built intuitive interfaces to help you understand exactly how your jobs are running, so that you can make them more efficient. And that's something that we score and that we analyze for you, and that the platform helps you make those Spark jobs more efficient, which goes to that cost-effective nature. Now, Sean mentioned that we have the Ocean platform, and so the way that this works is, in the Spark world, you have a concept of a driver, which is essentially the when you submit the request to do a job, that request goes to a driver, and then that driver then breaks it down into different tasks, if you will, and then submits it out to executors. And so Spot, or the platform, uses Ocean to use Spot instances to run those workloads. So the driver itself is on demand. So those are the most expensive types of infrastructure resources you can get. And then whenever it actually does the executor work, which is ephemeral, short-lived, it's kind of just doing a task and then sending the results back to the driver. It does that on Spot instances. And so whereas a traditional Spark platform, you'd have those executors running all the same VM type, and they might be too big for your particular workload and you have a lot of wasted resources, we kind of custom fit exactly what you need as part of the Ocean platform. So it makes that much more efficient. And because it's running on Spot, your cost is 90% less for those infrastructure resources. And Spot instances present a very particular problem, which is they can be terminated basically at any time. And so part of what makes the product so effective is we have algorithms in place that can look at types of instances and their volatility, and then we apply a score to it. And so, for instance, in this little diagram here, in US West 2, right, this instance type might have 90% score. So that would be a good instance for us to pick. So an M4 large, we know that it would be a good instance to choose. Whereas in US West 2C, that would not be the best place to pick it because the volatility is there, right? And there's a chance that could get killed. And we don't want interruptions. You want your job to run and complete, and then send the work back, and then we want to turn the Spot instance off. You don't want it to be interrupted in the middle of that. We do have logic and things in place to handle those interruptions, but that requires data shuffling and other things, and makes those jobs less efficient. So how does it work? Well, there's a lot of different ways to get into Spark. Today, we're going to talk about Jupyter and Jupyter Lab, but there's also orchestration, things like Jenkins and Airflow you can use, and some other ones. And effectively, you submit your request to the Spot backend, and then that goes into the Kubernetes cluster, in this case, running in AWS. And then the driver gets the request and then submits the executors. One cool thing about our platform as well is within a single cluster, you can run all sorts of Spark versions because of the way that it's segmented. One job can run 3.1 and the other job can run 3.2. And it's not tied to a whole cluster. Every single request can run a different Spark version, which really helps when you're trying to migrate to different, trying to migrate up or whatever. You don't have to do one big, movement. You can just do per job. And then because it's in your environment, all of the data that you have, whether that's in S3 or Kafka or Snowflake or Delta Lake or ArcGIS or whatever, it stays within your VPC, right? So you're not having these data transfer costs and that are crazy or anything like that. It all just stays there, and you have full control, tight control of those data. So we're going to hop into a quick demo here. We're not going to be sending out links to log in and stuff like that right now. This is just getting you familiar with the concept and the platform itself. We don't have it ready right now for everyone to log in. So I saw some requests going in for the Arc data and that stuff. We're not ready for that right now. So bear with us. So the way that you're going to log in is you're going to hit spot.io, which is where the console is, and you'll hit sign in. And right now we don't have SSO set up for the UN. That is something we could work on, Sean. I don't know if you're interested in that, but everyone
absolutely. That sounds great.
Yeah, that might be something that we could do, but for right now it's not set up. So it will either be going SSO or you'll get a username and password. In this case, I'm just demoing the username and password. And so you'll get signed in, and by default, you're going to land at our Spot dashboard. Now, I'm going to just demonstrate here. I have two separate organizations that my account is tied to. You should only have one, and it should land you directly in the proper organization. But if you do have multiple, that's how you would switch to the different organization. And then once you're here, you're going to click on the infamous hamburger there, and you're going to go to Ocean for Apache Spark. And it's going to take you directly to the application view. So this is what is running on the cluster right now. So you're going to have the cluster view. You shouldn't need to see, go here, but this will tell you which clusters are running and then which jobs and applications are. In your case, you're going to go to Workspace. And so Workspaces, this is a Jupyter notebook. Now that we've had a couple of demonstrations of those, this is what this is here. And so you will just create a new workspace. I've already got one running. So we'll just launch it. And so we are hosting, in this case, we are hosting Jupyter Lab for you. in our platform. And so it will open the Jupyter Notebook. And if I recall, Sean's going to have some notebooks that you'll be able to put in here and run for demonstration purposes. But right here is a notebook that I already had set up. If you want to create a new one, you just right click and hit new notebook. And there's going to be some configuration templates where this is a demo account, so there's quite a few of them. But the configuration templates are going to tell the platform what version of Spark you want to run. It's going to talk about if you have an S3 bucket you need attached to, it'll give you permissions for that type of stuff. And so the configuration template should be predefined for you, and there will be instructions on which ones you should pick and that type of stuff that'll be coming out as part of the documentation for the hackathon later. So in this case, I already have a kernel running, which is essentially an application. So I'm just going to pick an existing kernel, and then I can start writing. I can start writing a Jupyter Notebook right here, and you can see up here that this is the kernel, and it's connected and it's running and ready to go. So this is the one that I ran earlier, and so essentially, you're just going to run each step. And in this case, I am doing a data show, which I will caution you guys on, because that will pull data to your browser. So depending on how much data you have, if you've got gigs or terabytes worth of data and you do a .show, it could be quite a bit, especially depending on how you do it. But you can see up here, what is going on with the kernel. So in this case, it's working and it has executed a couple of cells, and so while that's running, I'm just going to come over here and show you what that looks like. So from an application perspective, this is the application that's running. And you can come in here and check your driver logs. You can check your executor logs, or you can look at the Kubernetes logs themselves. You can see if there's any issues going on with Spark. And in the overview tab here, it'll take just a second to pop up. Usually doesn't take this long. Demo gods must not be with me today. This is our demo account, so it gets abused pretty heavily. We'll see if that loads, but the Spark UI is another thing you can get to. Again, we try to give you, once this loads up, we try to give you metrics and other data points in here, so you don't have to go to the Spark UI. But if you are a Spark Power user and you want to see what's going on, you can always come to the Spark UI and poke around and get an idea of what's going on there. Yeah, so you can see the various things that are running. Yeah, I'm not sure why that's not loaded. Let me just go to a past one and see. Yeah, here we go. So as that one should have loaded this, but back to what we were talking about on efficiency score, this will tell you how efficient this job was. And what that means is how much idle time did it have? How much swap time did it have, or shuffle time? Those different things is how we score efficiency. And so we can give you recommendations on how to lower that, but you can really get a good view into what's happening with your Spark job. And if you want to dive in a little closer, these are interactive charts, so you can pick some pieces and zoom in a little bit more to get more insight into that. Reset zoom, or you can check. See, this is the CPU utilization. You can check memory utilization. Not sure why it's not available on this one. I probably picked a bad job. And you can see how that particular job was configured. And then we have this concept of auto tuning. And so what that means is, as you run jobs, we're going to look at it and look at the performance characteristics and profiles, and we will tweak and tune those jobs for you to make them the most efficient. So from a high level, that is what. Oh, there's my data. That is what we're going to offer for the hackathon, and it's also what we offer for the United Nations as a whole, and they use it extensively, and that way it helps really reduce their Spark costs. So I think I've got some time left. I'm sure there's probably a few questions. Or
if I can intervene really quickly, Andrew, just want to also say the advantage here is that we are actually using dynamic allocation inside the application itself. So what Andrew shown here, the notebook, when it's idle, when you guys are not doing anything, when you're exploring some data or just seeing another tool, it will actually scale down to only the driver that's running. So all of the executors, all of that compute power will be scaled down. And that way you can actually keep the notebook alive even for the entire day, and it will only cost you what the driver will actually cost you, which usually is 1 or 2 cores, so the smaller portion of the application.
Yep, good point. Thanks for bringing that up. Any unanswered questions or color you want to add, Sean?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say, so we're going to be providing links in the wiki to how to get access to the system, and it'll be clear. We're going to make sure the documentation is self-explanatory, and so and we will be ideally preloading the environments that believe, or we'll provide a link to GitHub repositories where you can see some example analysis that'll show you, a lot of the questions you may have if you're a data scientist, for instance. Where do I get access to the data? How do I perform certain types of aggregations? And we're collecting, the community that uses this system will be able to provide a substantial amount of existing and resources that they've put together. So we're going to preload that. We'll have access to that, and you'll be able to make use of that as you can. Hopefully that helps. But from this point, I think if there are other questions, I believe I did pause the timer when we were fixing all the stuff, but I believe we're slightly over time nonetheless. Is everyone any questions we want to hit at before we go on? So if not, let me just double check. I think we may be actually quite early. I will check this. No, we're good. It's 9:11, and we have Oblivious AI here. I'm really happy. We've actually been pretty good with time. Miss Ellie, the floor is yours. Really nice to see you.
Hey, Sean, great to see you too. Hope everyone can hear me and that my screen is also visible.
Yes, looks great. Like the color.
Perfect. So guys, I'm going to introduce the Privacy Enhancing Technologies track and share some of the resources that you have available between now and the Datathon to start practicing on these things and familiarize yourself with all the various concepts involved. A quick introduction about me. I am product lead at Oblivious. We provide privacy enhancing technologies, and to work with those for data scientists, we provide anti-granular, which is a private Python to help you use privacy enhancing technologies without you leaving your familiar Python workflow. So maybe some of you might have missed this, but just to make sure that everybody knows, there are additional prizes for the best solutions that use privacy enhancing technologies within the Datathon. And what I want to make sure is that I give you the key takeaways while you are fresh and plugged in. The wiki is coming soon, and it will help you with all aspects of the Datathon, including the pets track. We are going to be also kicking off the webinar and office hours for the pets track from Monday. I'll share that schedule with you shortly. The data sources and sandbox that you can start playing around with are ready, and you can start practicing on the pets track as well. I'll share details of that as well now. The main data set will be unveiled soon, I believe next week, but keep an eye out for that information coming soon as well. Now, just wanted to share that between now and the Datathon itself, we want to make sure people have plenty of time to familiarize themselves with what concepts are involved in doing privacy enhancing technologies. How do you do responsible data science? So from Monday onwards, every day we are going to be having something to help you get started on this journey. The things that I've highlighted in green are ones that are super beginner friendly. They will not assume any prerequisite knowledge. The ones that are not highlighted in green, they will need you to have either attended one of the previous sessions or be aware of some of these things already. I see a hand has gone up. If you could kindly just pop your question in the chat, and I will just come back to it in a second. Now, to get started learning about privacy-enhancing technologies, the UN actually released a PET guide last year, and it is a really great source if you have not heard about this term before or you don't really know how you could use that during the Datathon. It's a super friendly guide and very short, actually. You can kind of get through it over a weekend. So I highly recommend this as your first stop source of information. There's also a lot of content on YouTube from the United Nations Pet Lab Hackathon that happened in November last year. So you can actually go and visit those videos and see the kind of work that people put together at that time as well. In terms of the data, because the data for this hack itself hasn't been yet released, but the kind of data that will be used, you can actually start accessing libraries and start familiarizing yourself already. There are two key microdata libraries that I would recommend checking out. One is from the World Bank, the other is from UNHCR, and they both provide really, really interesting data sets that you can already start looking at to familiarize yourself with the data that will be used in the hackathon. Now, hands-on coding practice. How can you get started with getting your feet wet, how you can start coding already? For that, actually, you can already go on antigranular.com. And I will just briefly show you as well how you can start copying some of the notebooks that are already there. And you can upload your own data or the preloaded data sets, and you can start seeing how you might use your usual data science Python notebook workflow, and you can actually already start that. So I believe you can see my whole window. So I'm just going to switch to antigranular.com. There you can just use your Gmail ID to sign in or log in. And from there, you can check out two main things. One is data sets, where you can check out some of the data sets that you can start playing around with to understand pets. We also have created 2 sandbox competitions for you to already start practicing a few of the techniques that I'm going to talk about a bit more. And you can also see notebooks there that we have uploaded. So you can see some of the examples. Once you open a notebook, you can simply fork it, and you will be able to then go through the whole notebook yourself. And you can read all the kind of comments to ease into the workflow of how you can start using hands-on pets. And you can do this right after this call. Going back to the slide deck. So as I mentioned, you have the docs to guide you there as well to help you familiarize with all the concepts. The wiki will also point to all the relevant links and sources for this. Now, what is the motivation for the pets track, actually? As you know, that we are living in a world where more and more data is becoming available, and granular data is really valuable for understanding the trends that are unfolding around us. But of course, with more granular data, the challenge arises that we also need to be very mindful that this data does not get used in malicious ways. And because UN obviously works so closely with so many national statistical offices all around the globe, they have to be very mindful that the information that they are receiving or exchanging needs to be done in a very mindful, responsible way, so that that data does not lead to any sort of identification that can be used against individuals. And very key examples of that can be you can see some of that in the microdata from UNHCR because they handle refugee data. And obviously, this kind of data is extremely sensitive. So privacy enhancing technologies come into the picture because they really provide us a way of bringing sensitive data sources together. They guarantee that the data is only used for its intended purposes and that the data cannot be reverse engineered from the outputs of the data being shared. And this really is about the life cycle of responsible use of data. And we want you to basically go ahead and use privacy enhancing technologies in your pipeline and in your solutions that you will propose during the Datathon to really see what can we do with these technologies. Now, to quickly give you a flavor of what pets are all about, we'll obviously go into this in much more details in the webinars all of next 2 weeks. There is the privacy enhancing technology pipeline can be split into 3 parts. There is input privacy, there's output privacy, and then there is privacy on the functions that are done in the middle or the processes that you apply to the data. And different types of pets that you will hear about try to address different parts of this data flow. I'll quickly skip through this. Input privacy is kind of mostly on 2 types. There's cryptographic approaches and there's enclave-based approaches. If you're seeing the recording of this video, please pause here and you can read this text-heavy slide. Output privacy, statistical data disclosure controls have been there for a very long time and are very well-established methods of disclosing data to the public. Differential privacy is something that is done within enclaves, or it is a basically algorithmic approach to apply privacy to the output of any data that is being processed. And in a similar way, federated learning is also a form of output privacy, which a lot of it use every day in our phones because it's used a lot in IoT and digital devices. In the Datathon, you will get to work with enclaves and differential privacy very closely. You don't actually need to understand the kind of weeds of it. You will be able to do a lot of this out of the box. We have tried to make it very simple. And by combining them, hopefully you can create some very powerful solutions. But I just want to remind everyone, like, no need to worry about the kind of complexity that maybe it introduces to the Datathon that you're already planning. The important thing to remember is that we are trying to be a force of good while doing responsible data use. And just want to remind that these are the office hours that are coming up. And hopefully you will join us. And I can't wait to see a lot of the presentations that will come on as a result of this. I think I have left ample time for questions to be asked in the chat. So yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, so I see one question about the office hours. I think this is going to be very important. Do you have anything scheduled for Oblivious?
Yeah. So the office hours that we are kicking off will start from Monday. I am working to get the calendar uploaded in the event stream, so you'll be able to see all the details there. It will be populated either later today or tomorrow. And so, yeah, and I think I will share a link here as well for this presentation shortly once I stop sharing my screen.
Fantastic. That's wonderful. I have to say, I mean, not to please ask your questions, but I just want to say I think this has been a fantastic series of introductions to a lot of fantastic content, and so some people are asking about recorded sessions. There are a lot. How is the PET measure for the additional prize you mentioned? So this is something I don't know if Alex, we have any thoughts on, but how are these different tracks essentially coming together? Because the PET challenge is substantially different from the others. And so, Alex, is there anything you'd be able to add on how these things come together in the judging and or are they treated just with conditions of equality? You know, and are they just different options?
Yeah. So yeah, let me come in on that one. So we have already shared some information on the various awards and prizes on the Datathon website. We are still defining some the judging criteria. So the judges will gather at one point in the near future and define their judging criteria, and then I'm not sure how much of that will then be shared. So we will share the criteria for sure, but we might not share the weights. Let's maybe put it this way. And of course, if you participate in the PET challenge, which is a little bit special or different from the other one, there's a special prize for that, or a special award for that. And there's also, I think, a special award for people who are using AIS data, so vessel tracking data.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think that makes a lot of sense. So we'll be sure to have that information available to the extent that certain parts of it will be available. Others will be, you know, kept under wraps to prevent over-engineering certain aspects of the results. So
awesome. I'll drop off, Sean, or just turn off my camera. and still available in chat to answer any more questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ali. So I think we have come to the part of the presentation where we sort of want to dive into depth a little bit with some question and answers. And this is not a mandatory part. So if everyone's entirely satisfied, I think, you know, that's a wonderful thing, and we've succeeded, and we don't need to hang around too long. But I would like to sort of linger to see if people. So one thing, I see the meeting language was changed to the Chinese. If you can not change the meeting language, this is something we don't know how to prevent. But if you can keep it in English, this helps with a lot of stuff like transcriptions and things like that. So whoever, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So are there any people who would like to raise their hands? I think this is the best way to do Q&A. I'd like to, if you've put something in the chat and you feel it perhaps wasn't answered, or there's some ambiguity or lack of clarity, let's put our hands up, and we can sort of unmute you and turn on your camera, and you can share your thoughts with us directly. Is there anyone who'd be like to be so bold? Is there anything that was confusing where, yeah, okay, I see. Maria, if you could help me unmute some of the participants or someone. I'll try it as well, but I'm slow. I see Kendall Cable. So would you like to see? I think you can unmute yourself if you'd like to try. Would the participant Kendall Cable like to ask their question?
Yeah, please unmute yourself, Kendall.
Hi, everyone. So just some quick questions about the final, I guess, process. So we've seen some pretty great tools that we'll have to use, you know, in terms of the platform. But just in terms of the final output, are we allowed to use open source or third-party tools from other avenues, for instance?
So I can answer that. So the principle that we're going to be using is we want things to be reproducible, and we if they are using paid proprietary tools that are not available to the public, we want to flag this as something that we're going to provide more clarity on this in the future. So I can't say yes or no, but this is something that for us does constitute a challenging question, because our mission is to make sure that things are reproducible using the platforms we've provided, which constitutes the extent to which, you know, we're comfortable with certain proprietary environments. But beyond that, we would like to encourage people to use open source technologies, and you know, sort of knowledge that's in the public domain. If you do end up using proprietary data or software, we do believe it causes unfair competition, and we'll indicate next week during the last webinar, essentially, our exact position on this. And I have to apologize for not having a clearer view, but this is something we will clarify on the wiki as well. And there may or may not be certain conditions under which proprietary software and data files may be used. So, Alex, if you
Okay.
want to undo what the damage I've caused.
No, all good, all good. I just wanted to add one more point to this, is that all solutions submitted by the UN Datathon participants need to be submitted under an open source license. So the code that you provide and on which your solution is based will be or should be licensed with an open source license, and we will give information about the desired license that we would like to have. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. I see Peter. Let me see the first. So yeah, Peter Murray, Rust. You can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I was wondering what the structure of the data was. How much of it is highly structured in relational tables? How much of it is in graph format? How much is semi-structured text? And how much of it will be completely unstructured, maybe images, maybe free text, things of that sort?
I can dive into that a little bit. So there's a wide range of data that will be available across. As I was listening to that, I could identify at least one data source in every environment that met the criteria. So the way I would look at it, to clarify, right? So we have 4 different analytic environments, and each of these analytic environments has, because of this idea of data gravity, and they have access to data that they've cultivated. So for instance, Esri, they have a lot of geospatial remote sensing data, right? So this data is as it's essentially satellite images and this sort of thing. And that environment specializes it. They also have other information that may be tabular relating to all sorts of other things, right? So now if you move to our AIS environment, what we essentially are providing is access to, this is the NetApp, right? The NetApp product is enabling access to a vast amount of shipping data, of the movement of ships across the globe. So this is data that's stored in an S3 bucket. It has it's not relational data, but it's something you'd use Apache Spark to access, and it's structured, but you're essentially looking at the raw signal information from the ships, and so each signal has a message. It has some structured content, right? So there's and then we have relation. So if you go to AWS, right, they have this open data registry where they have the common crawl for the internet, so that you can actually go there and see, you could basically have the whole internet there if you want to access that. Then they have Sentinel-2 data for satellites. They have all sorts of data. So there's a wide variety of data that's there. And the filter we're providing is what we're going to have essentially a theme for the hackathon that we'll release in the week prior. And this theme is going to give you the focus that we see for this data. So we're not pinning you on a data set, we're pinning you on a mission and a theme and a purpose. So whatever data you feel will help you achieve the mission that you'll be assigned is data that you can use and submit. Does that make sense?
Makes complete sense, yes.
Okay, excellent. Hope that helps. All right, so let's see who else we have. Just going to mute the people who've already asked their questions. So is there anything else we'd like to discuss before we move on to conclusions? I'm not trying to rush people. I just realized that it's been an hour and a half, and people may feel that this is enough information. So I'll give another 15 seconds for someone to raise their hand before I move on. And if you've asked something in the chat, okay, thank you. I appreciate this. I'm not trying to put pressure on people, but I really want people to raise their hands. So we have Gimar. Gimar, would you like to unmute yourself? Gimar? I may not be saying your name correctly. I apologize.
Looks like they
Oh,
can't go off mute, but they're asking if they can use other languages like JavaScript or MongoDB.
Got it. That's fine. The criteria is open source, reproducible. If whatever is available in these platforms, if they support JavaScript, absolutely. I'm sure AWS has support for notebooks and these languages. So just strong yes. Yeah, we want to be very supportive of the sort of freedom that participants can have to design their architectures and their solutions as they see fit. If you come with a certain expertise in a particular stack, so the condition is, so long as it is part of the technology that these platforms enable, or you can run it locally. If somehow that works, if you're able to get access to the data, you have to use open source and publicly available data sets that are released with. We're going to provide more detail about the licenses, but yeah. So, okay. There's someone else who'd like to? Okay, we have another hand. Please unmute yourself, and we can.
Yeah, good morning and good evening. Yeah, we might forget. So what are the do's and don'ts? We like something that we can talk about. So just to avoid any future problems or like any house rules basic.
So that's a good thing. I'm going to put that on our to-do list because what I may say here may not be complete, but I do think that we will provide a list of do's and don'ts. We'll look into this, but there's several things that come to my mind. So in terms of the data integration aspect, so a lot of the issue of data movement. So a lot of these platforms enable you to access very large data sets, and it's very reasonable to spin up a server in these environments or create a notebook. Every platform essentially allows you to create a notebook and access these very large data sets that are there. Let's say it's Esri satellite imagery. They have everything ready to go for you. One of the don'ts, I would say, is don't try to download the entirety of these data sources to your local machine and then use your local machine to do the compute. This is a big don't. And I know this is an obvious thing to say, but for some people, it may not be obvious. There are so many reasons this is a bad idea. So but one of them is you may end up costing someone a lot of money because the UN is generously funding this, and along with the partners who are funding. So we're actually going to make it we want to make it very hard for you to download huge amounts of data to your local machine. So that's something we're going to actively try to throttle, and it's going to make your life hard. The easy solution to do create the analytic environments adjacent to where the data already is, right? So if we have 50 terabytes of data in a cloud bucket, it's much easier to create an EC2 server or create a notebook there and do your compute there than it is to download 50 terabytes of data to your local machine and then discover that's going to take 17 years. So this is something that has come up in the past. The reason I'm talking about it with such drama is that this is a really bad idea. So that's the first don't that comes to mind. The other don't is the other do is when you're trying to integrate data, you definitely can download data. So you should download summary tables. So you should use these environments to produce insight and analytic, outputs that are essentially distillations of the complexities of these data sources. You don't want to basically create a dashboard that essentially allows people to, visualize every single data point in our AIS environment. What you want to do is to create meaningful insight that abstracts at a higher level using data science tools and the expertise that you bring. And so what you download should be reasonably small, should be a gigabyte, of data, something like this, not terabytes. So and then this is the way you integrate the data between these platforms. Say you're in AIS and you create a summary table of carbon emissions from ships. Great. You download the summary table, it should be reasonably small, megabytes, something like this. And you take this into Esri, or maybe gigabytes, you take this into Esri, ArcGIS, or AWS, and you perform further things there. But that has to be, it can't be large. And there are rules about, I believe with AWS, I have to say about the kinds of data you can bring in there. It has to be public. There's another thing I think we have to make known for people. But in general, all these rules will be available on the wiki. But does that help? First, those are two do's and don'ts off the top of my head. That Alex, is there anything else?
Yeah, it helps. Yeah, I can relate to it because we also do data analytics at work, and I'm with the digital tech department. So thanks.
So yeah, you're probably very familiar with these issues. Maybe there are others that the cloud providers would like to, or the technology partners would like to discuss if this is a relevant point. Otherwise, 15 seconds for the next question before we close this this point. 5 seconds left. All right, so now, I do see just in the nick of time. There's one. There's one. I'm trying so hard. Okay, let's raise. You can raise your hand if you put your hand up.
Sorry, I had a quick question. I just wanted to ask if you guys have a, I'm sure there is some explanation for it, but like in terms of the deliverables of the competition, like is there some guidelines in terms of like I have seen like you're supposed to have some sort of YouTube video for it, so I just wasn't sure what that entails. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, maybe I can take this. So we will have. So we already have some information about what you should submit and the grading, some general information about the judging criteria on the website. As Sean has mentioned several times before, and as we have mentioned in the chat, is we will also have a wiki available next week. Not sure yet exactly on which day, but the latest day for publishing that wiki would be during our last webinar before the event. So there we will also explain the deliverables, but I can already say, so you will have to provide basically three things. One is a presentation of some sort of your solution that you have created, right? You can use the story maps from Esri for that. You can use a PowerPoint or some other tool to create the presentation, and you would upload that. In addition to that, we will ask you to upload a video of around 10 minutes duration where you explain your solution, basically the problem that you tried to resolve, how you went about it, and what came out of it, right? So this can be either talking through the presentation that you have created or showing also, let's say if you created a dashboard, maybe do a quick live demo in the video of the dashboard. So you will upload that video in the submission form, and we would also ask you optionally to upload it as well to a video streaming service. Could be YouTube or something else. So you provide us with a link there. And finally, you will be asked to provide the link to a Git repository where you have stored your code. And I think that's all right, Sean, or did I miss something?
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, so what I'm about to say, they're not official guidelines. This is just how I approach things in my personal capacity. But I think that in general, when you're trying to make a presentation on something where you're trying to show groundbreaking, cutting edge thought, which is essentially what we're trying to draw out of you during this process, is to go over some of the key points. You often have to answer very similar questions wherever you go. One is, what are you trying to do? What's the point of everything? So don't use jargon, talk about what you're doing. The other one is, how is it done today? What's the limit? What's new in what you did? How does your solution contrast with the current state of the art? That's the second thing. Third thing is, this who cares question. What difference does it make? If you are successful in your work, what is the implication beyond just the narrow focus, the esoteric world that you're looking at? What does it mean for the UN and the purpose that we've given you? We've given you a mission, right? So this mission is it's going to be something, big, impact related, right? Let's think about that. So you have to be able to connect your thing to the broader purpose that you've been assigned. So this is the who cares question, right? I think if you can talk through those things plus some others, I think you'll be in a good position. But that's not official guidance. This is just my own personal opinion about this. All right, I see another hand. Ian Leckie, would you mind unmuting yourself and?
Hello?
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Please, my question is, I just want to know if it would be possible if the training manual will be made available for the participants. Something that will actually guide, that will actually serve as a guide for the participants.
Okay, so this is interesting. So what we are going to do, we want to give the participants the resources they need to succeed, right? And the way we're approaching that is not by creating a specialized training manual, but what we're trying to do is to organize publicly available information in our wiki. We're going to give you access to a wiki that we've created, which is, you can think of it like a training manual, but it's a single place where you can go. And from there, we're going to provide links to the publicly available documentation of these different platforms, of the different analytic approaches you can use. So we're not going to reproduce the information contained there. And because in a typical data science world, you have to go look at the documentation for everything. So looking at the docs is step one, basically, for every data scientist, let's say. So we want to expose you to that process. So we will organize information. We will create, a page with things where there's a clear information architecture where you can see, NetApp, AWS, blah, 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 and resources to succeed. But we won't really be providing a training manual, but we will be providing a wiki that provides lots of access to, tutorials, examples, documentation, API references, and that sort of thing. If you want, would you be able to respond to that? And does that sound like a good enough approach?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so that's kind of the orientation. I don't want to sound like we're saying no. We're just trying to say that the process we're going to use is maybe a little bit. We're trying to, reuse existing content. I see if there are more hands. Let me see. Whoever's raised their hand next, if you see a number 1 next to your name, you can.
Yeah, that's me, Clarence.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Sean, on the wiki, there will be a guide on how to submit your project. So there will be clear step-by-step instructions to make sure you understand that your submission is complete, what you'll need to include, and how to do that.
Excellent. Okay, we have 1 more minute. So if someone has another question, you have 1 moment to ask it, and then we're moving on. This is the last question. You have 12, 13 seconds left. Then we're going to move to conclusions. Have 3 seconds. All right, so moving to conclusions. So we have, I just want to point out, I've been trying to make some summaries of what people have been talking about. So I think this is hopefully, I'm just going to keep it in this mode. So conclusions, and there's some important points that were raised, and I think these are important to go over quickly because these to me seem like the things that people were discussing that were the most relevant from my perspective. So Datathon will be 72 hours in duration. And in general, my understanding is that we're not giving access in advance. That's because we don't want to give access to some and not all. So I think we don't want to provide in a condition where things aren't fully equal across the 4 platforms. So this is my current understanding of things. The second thing is judging criteria will be made public in advance of the Datathon. So all of this discussion about how you'll be evaluated, that there's to a certain extent that will be made public, and to a certain extent there will be things that will be withheld, as you can understand. But we want to give fair notice to everyone about the targets we want you to pursue, without giving too much insight into the specific weights. So in general, we believe that the use of proprietary data, and this also applies to software and paid software beyond the platforms provided, provides unfair competition. So we want to indicate next week how we're going to do this, the exact conditions under which certain proprietary files or software systems can be used. Hopefully, we're punting this down the road a little bit, but I think this will be a helpful thing to have on the wiki. All information about the Datathon will be made available on the wiki page. This is going to be the single source of truth, and this is going to go live before the event. And this is going to provide, as you see here, a list of do's and don'ts. And we're going to provide guidelines on submissions on the wiki as well, how to submit your projects, that sort of thing. And importantly, what we're not going to do is on the wiki start reproducing. I mean, what we don't want to do is reproduce documentation that's already written elsewhere. What we want to do is link out to things. And all these platforms maintain very robust documentation. That's going to be very helpful for you. And we want you to get into the habit of being self-service and the way you would normally be in the real world. So we'll maintain links to entry points, and that sort of thing. So hopefully that's enough. The AWS accounts, I believe they've answered this, but the access codes will be provided prior to the Datathon. And then you don't need to worry about having a personal AWS account. It will not conflict because the way it's set up. And I believe those were some of the seemingly random points that I thought would be important to raise at the end. That concludes our webinar, folks. I think we've had a really good overview of all the different data sources and technology platforms that will be available. I just want to say thanks to all of our technology partners. Done a fantastic job and really leading this and making it a success. So, Alex, if you have anything else to say, you can have the final words and we can shut this down.
Oh, I have the final words. No, I just wanted to say thank you to the people who thought that I was a very special, fancy new UN AI bot, but I'm not. I'm quite human, and that's it.
But I have to say, I've been asking that question every day that I've been working with Alex, if he's really a robot or not. So, just kidding. Thanks, everyone. This is it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good one. Good luck, and see you next week for our last webinar.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
God
Thank
bless.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you in the virtual world.